Wildcat Sports Club CNY Brewfest is coming up January 31st and February 1st at the New York State Fairgrounds. Taste your way through unlimited samples from more than 100 breweries. Now featuring hard ciders, seltzers, craft cocktails, and mocktails too. Grab your tickets now at cnybrewfest.com.
On this Saturday afternoon for Cuse and Boston College coming up in roundabouts an hour from Conte Forum out in Chestnut Hill, Massachusetts, on this blustery winter day all across the Northeast. Welcome in here on this Saturday. Both teams coming in having just played Georgia Tech. BC did not play midweek this week. They played the Yellow Jackets last Saturday. It went poorly. They got run out of the gym by more than 20 down in Atlanta. After that, the Jackets hopped a plane up to the Cuse, played I'm told it was a basketball game on Tuesday. They tell me what we watched on Tuesday was basketball. It was a grim watch. But at the end of that 2 hours of grimness, the number next to Syracuse's name larger than the number next to Georgia Tech's name, and thus Syracuse won its first ACC game of the year. And we could all just back away from the ledge ever so slightly after that win on Tuesday for the Orange. So back at it here today. Syracuse, Boston College. It's a series the Orange have dominated in recent years. Did lose in Chestnut Hill last year. First loss to BC going back more than half a decade. So we'll see how that carries over here today. J.J. Starling remains back in the lineup, presumably back at point guard as he has been in the starting lineup for the last couple of games in place of Jaquan Carlos. We've already heard an announcement. The last couple of games it's been like touch and go through pregame. Is Donnie playing? Is Donnie not playing? Where's JJ? What's going on? Well, we've already learned here today that day-to-day Donnie Freeman remains out with his lower right leg injury. Our early Harding and Mazzanti injury report today. No Donnie Freeman for the Orange today. Red has kind of said both day to day, week to week. He's, I don't know what the deal is with Donnie Freeman's right foot, right something. He's got the walking boot on the right lower part of his lower right extremity. Yeah, medical stuff. So we'll see what's going on with Donnie, but no Freeman today. The Orange played their best defensive game of the year last time out in the absence of Donnie. Jair Davis was in the starting lineup at power forward. I would expect the same today against this Boston College team that you think back to last year. Their head coach, Earl Grant, has had them on a great path, a return to relevancy. BC had been, lost in the wilderness for the last decade. They were not good. They got rid of Al Skinner and then stopped winning basketball games. This is essentially what happened for a decade. They've hired Earl Grant. He went 13 wins his first year, 16 wins his second year. Last year, made the postseason, got into the NIT, won a game in the NIT, BC's first postseason win in 15 years, and won 20 games. But then for BC, modern basketball struck. Quentin Post, eligibility has expired. He is on the Golden State Warriors now. The other four starters for Boston College from last year's 20-win basketball team all entered the transfer portal. All are starting at various Power 5 basketball programs this year. Vanderbilt, Seton Hall, Clemson, and Mississippi State. All are starting. All were starters for a 20-win Boston College team last year. So they basically got torn down to the studs unexpectedly, had to replace everybody, and they're okay. They're 9-6 right now. We'll see where they go in the ACC. They don't really have any landmark games on their schedule to talk about, but this BC team is extremely different personnel-wise from any of the ones that we saw over the course of the last few years. As far as Syracuse, 62-55 over Georgia Tech the last time out. A game the Orange led a decent chunk of the way. There was no Donnie Freeman in that game, as there is not tonight. So we got a new starting lineup for what was the 8th time this season. Going back as far as it could have been gone back. The people that research said things. Went back to literally nearly 50 years ago into the box scores into the 1970s and could not find a Syracuse season where this many starting lineups had been used. The season's only half over. We're running out of potential combinations, but the season is only half over. at this point. So the starting lineup on Tuesday was J.J. Starling at the 1, Champa Moore at the 2, Lucas Taylor at the 3, Jair Davis at the 4, and Eddie Lampkin at the 5. Chris Bell came off the bench for the second straight game and scored 13 more points. No Donnie Freeman. We saw the likes of Kyle Cuff playing. We saw Jaquan Carlos play 10 minutes off the bench. We've seen the role, if not the minutes, due to foul trouble, but it feels like the role is increasing for Peter Majstorovic, who was playing both the backup 5 and the backup 4 on Tuesday in the absence of Donnie Freeman. 6 rebounds for Peter, 4 fouls, 12 minutes. Didn't foul out. Made it technically to the end of the game. But I'm presuming we'll see the same starting 5 again today, unless they feel like this now is the time to bring Chris Bell back into the starting lineup. I do wonder what's the chicken and the egg here with Bell's resurgence, because they both happened in the same game. J.J. Starling coming back. Mike Waters, in his game preview this morning, he detailed the games Bell has played with J.J. and Bell has played without J.J. this year. The stats are, it's bonkers. It's like he is a basketball player in the games where J.J. has played. He doesn't exist in the games where J.J. hasn't played. So is it because he went to the bench? Is it because Starling got back? Do you want to mess with it at all? My guess is Bell comes off the bench again today. But J.J. is clearly the team's best player, especially with Donnie Freeman out. 21 points for J.J. on Friday, 5 rebounds, 37 minutes. So he's quickly assumed the volume of time on the court that he had prior to the injury. He said he's fine. We talked to him this week. He's basically like, yeah, I'm good. He's got a little rap. He says it's not bothering him. I haven't noticed it bothering him. I haven't noticed any, I don't know about you, I haven't noticed any like hand shaking, any like futzing with the tape, anything that appears to be bothering him. It's quite remarkable, barely a month removed from a broken left hand for Starling, and a new role now as he's taken over the job as a lead point guard. Lucas Taylor continues to shine. 10 more points for him on Tuesday night in the win. Jair Davis made his second start of the season. He had 8 points and 9 rebounds in the game. Eddie Lampkin, solid game, double-double. 10 points and 12 rebounds for him. We mentioned Chris Bell, 13 points. Only made 1 of 5 threes on Tuesday, but Chris Bell, who had been basically missing in action for a month, now 30 points total, 17 and 13 in the last 2 games since he went to the bench and since J.J. Starling returned to the lineup. So that was Tuesday. Defensive stats. Now, was it Georgia Tech missing shots? Was it Syracuse playing better defense? Was it some combination of both? Probably the latter. It was, without question, Syracuse's best defensive effort of the year against, a real team. Boston College, who played Georgia Tech a week ago today down in Atlanta, gave up 85 to them. 85, which is, give or take, where Georgia Tech normally spends their time. They're an offensive team, not a defensive juggernaut. Syracuse allowed 30 fewer points to Georgia Tech than Boston College did a week ago. That good. But you only scored 62 points against a team that's not great at defense. It was an ugly game. Let's all be honest with each other. It was a gross game on Tuesday night. But for all the conversations we've had and have started needing to have about, all right, there's 18 teams in the league this year. Only 15 of them make the conference tournament. How we all feeling about that? That was a really, really important win on Tuesday, just to kind of ease the pressure off on the conversation about it, for one, or what it's doing to the team. Like, they're not dumb. They're aware of the scenario around them. They're aware of what being 0-4 in the league would potentially mean about where you're going to finish up the league, as 3 teams will miss the conference tournament this year. And much like Tuesday, where that was an important game to, all right, get off the schneid and get going, BC is not looking like one of the stronger teams in the league this year, to put it mildly. They're looking like one of the weaker teams in the league this year. Syracuse plays them twice. The first of 2 is today. If you want to not be having this conversation about making or missing the ACC tournament a month and a half from now, today would be a good game to win if you're Syracuse. You've got to if you're Syracuse, to avoid that heinous conversation. Win games like this today. Next week, hey, if you can steal a game against Louisville next Tuesday in the Dome, the more is the merrier. But these are the games. Notre Dame's return trip to the Dome next Saturday. Notre Dame are rallying back, trying to give Duke a little game right now. Apparently, Cooper Flagg's just going crazy today for the Dukies. But you've got the games like that against the teams in the similar part of the league that you find yourself if you're Syracuse. You've already lost one to Notre Dame on the road that came down to the end and got away from you. You know, your other league losses, I wouldn't really file into that category. Florida State on the road, Wake Forest preseason third in the league. I wouldn't file those two games into that same category. But a game like today on the road at Boston College, must win? Okay, that's a bit strong. But if you want to avoid the conversation a month and a half from now, if you want to just shut that off to the side and forget about it, winning a game today against the Eagles would be a long way to go before that. All right, off and running here on our Burdick pregame coverage here on this Saturday afternoon. Tip time a little less than an hour out from Conte Forum in Chestnut Hill, Massachusetts. Phone line's open if you'd like to chime in on this pregame hour, 315-437-7644 for ESPN 44. We'll stop what we're doing and talk to you. I could be mid-sentence. We'll stop what we're doing in our tracks and talk to you if you'd like to chat here on this Saturday afternoon. Also, we'll play back some Red Entree for you. Red, as he always does, joined Orange Nation this week. Normally Thursday. It was Wednesday this week, brought to you by Oswego County Mutual. We'll bring back some of that to you when we come back as well. All that as we roll along here on this Saturday afternoon, getting you ready for Cuse and Boston College today here on Cuse Sports Talk and ESPN Radio. Oh, chat, what is up? Malik Sart? That stinks. Oh, Notre Dame getting back into it. They were getting... Cooper Flagg is 39 points? Jeez. He's pretty good, huh? Oh, what's going on in the YouTubes? What's going on in the old YouTubes? What's up, Orange22? That's so, Nikki? Well, you know he's not going to be interested in that job if he doesn't think they can then go get Shador. Which clearly would affect the Giants. Which would mean that he'd... Where are the Raiders picking? 6, 7, something like that? So they'd have to give up something huge, right, to go up to Cleveland at 2 and make sure they get Shador. I think all of their players, CBW, might give Syracuse some issues when Duke comes in. One and a half made threes, 2.5 assists, 18. I kind of feel like JJ's going to have to distribute a little bit today. I kind of like his overs on assists. Kind of like his overs across the board. Going to have the ball in his hands the whole game. Hit 4 threes in that building last year. Oh, yeah, everyone would bounce Colorado. Portal would open immediately. The rumor mill floating. Let's see. Coach. Get in the rumor mill. Get in the mix. Coach. Prime. Dion being the coach in Las Vegas would be wild. He has a strong interest. What does Tom Brady think about that? Oh, I'm sure they've known each other for years, Nick. Prime was still playing when Brady got in the league. Maybe, Nicky, but they're both guys that really like to win. It depends, Texan Mark. It depends if they had the money and they were setting it aside for Kyle, or if some people's additional money was dependent on Kyle. There's been, I've heard there have been some good freshmen in the league, Phil.
This is the Burdick Ford and Burdick Toyota pregame show.
That it is, back at it here on this Saturday afternoon. Brian Higgins with you all, getting you ready for Cuse, BC today out in Boston. See if the Orange can't pick up another win in this series. They did lose in Chestnut Hill last year for the first time in forever. We'll detail the recent series between these teams a little bit more in depth as we get closer to tip time today. A game you can watch on the CW. Tom Wormy, Seth Davis, your announcers today, and of course can listen to on TK99 ESPN 1200. Matt Satz and Paulie are all out at Conte Forum right now. Gotta wear some good socks when you're at Conte Forum. You're right on top of the ice. I mean, the floor's in the way, but the floor is on the ice. It can get a little chilly out there. Get a little chilly out there. You gotta come prepared for stuff like that when you're heading out to BC for a basketball game. All right, let's get a little bit from Orange head coach Adrian Red Autry here in his second season in charge of the Cuse, as he does every week. He visited with Stephen Pauly on Orange Nation, normally on Thursday. We'll be back to Thursday this upcoming week. Was on Wednesday this week due to women's basketball in that time slot on Thursday this week. So here is some of Steve and Pauly's convo with Red.
Coach, congrats on the win last night, and let's start right there. I know you guys really needed one. It wasn't the prettiest of wins, but it had to feel good to win that game and make plays down the stretch. In your mind, kind of what was the difference last night in picking up that win over Georgia Tech?
I thought, I was happy for these guys. These guys have been battling all year, and haven't gotten the results consistently that we want. But I thought the difference was obviously having JJ back, getting another game under his belt. I thought when plays needed to be made, he made them, and that speaks to the type of player that he is. You got to have that guy. I know every team has a guy, and he's our guy. And I just thought he made plays down the end. That kind of separated us, that we haven't had for a while.
It means a lot to have him back on the floor, and it's not just his scoring ability, right? I mean, his presence makes everybody better because he draws so much attention, I would assume, from opposing defenses. And I know you said it in your press conference last night that it's not a coincidence. JJ's back, and now Chris Bell seems to be coming alive here a little bit, and JJ does make those around him better, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's one of the best players in college basketball, one of the best guards and players, the thing about JJ is he draws a lot of attention with his speed, his quickness. He can pass it. He made a couple of passes at the end of the game. I think the biggest thing that they don't talk about is his defense on the other end. He came up with 2 blocks last night. He was really good. He gives us a physical guard, a guy that can guard, 1 or 2, 3, 1, 2 or 3. I thought he did a really good job in our defense and contested some shots and rebounding the basketball. He's an all-around player, but he's the guy that can, like you said, draw a lot of attention and make the game a little easier for other guys.
We saw him start at the 1 last night. What led to that decision?
I think, for this team, we needed that. I thought at the beginning of the year, I thought he, playing him off the ball would help, but as he grew, and we knew he was going to play a little bit on the ball and off the ball, but, as he grew and the way he was playing before he got hurt, he just looked so much better, and our team just functioned so much better when he was at the point. And that was actually the plan going forward before he got hurt. But the team functions so much better when he has the ball in his hands.
We saw Jaquan Carlos come off the bench last night. We saw Chris Bell come off the bench against Florida State, and then again last night. Can you speak to that a little bit? It sounded like, again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounded like it was almost like a mutual decision. Like in talking with Chris, you mutually decided that might be the best thing for him. And we've seen him play a lot better these last couple of games. Can you talk about that decision, what went into it, and how you've seen him improve and kind of get back on track these last couple of games?
Yeah, me and Chris, we sat down and we talked, and I kind of told him what I thought I seen him playing, how he was playing, tentative and kind of, not, obviously when you're pressing, when you're not playing up to your potential, and as a coach, you try to figure out what's the best decision, and try to help your players. And I thought, just bringing him off the bench and stop having him worry about when he's coming out the game, it changed his mindset and how he looked at it until going into the game, and just kind of taking that that pressure to a little bit of pressure off of himself. And I think he responded to that well, and just to get him in a spot. He knows how important he is, and I think he was really putting a ton of pressure on himself, and it was harder for him because he had moved up on the scouting report when in the absence of JJ, so he was getting the best defender. They were willing to let everybody else play and really take things away from him, and I thought that would kind of help him kind of get into the game a little easier.
How do you do the same with Elijah Moore now at this point? We were, Matt and Coach Saddleman were talking on the broadcast last night that he has more shots go halfway down and pop out than anybody we've seen before. How do you get him going?
Keep shooting. I mean, they popping in and out. Just keeping him, aggressive. I think he can do a better job of driving the ball a little bit more, playing off of 2 feet because he can score in that area. So trying to mix it up. But again, as a coach, you see those shots, and at some point those shots are going to start falling for him. And then that's going to be a big addition for this team. But you just keep him going. You keep him. You don't change anything. The fact that they are. You could just tell he's had a lot of those things roll in and out. So it's just a matter of time before they start dropping.
On the other end of the floor, Coach, you took a Georgia Tech team that had been scoring the basketball at a high rate, and you held them to 55 points. You turned them over a bunch. You won the rebounding battle. You held them to a low shooting percentage. Defensively, what have you noticed in terms of the improvements? And then what are some things that what are some things that still need to be addressed, I guess, on that side of the court?
Well, I think the one thing is that I think these guys have I think they're picking up what we're trying to do defensively. I thought they did a really good job of attention to detail with the scouting report of what we wanted to do. We had a couple of different coverages. I thought we executed. We had a couple of mix-ups, which happens. But overall, I thought we carried out the game plan. As far as Georgia Tech, they could shoot the ball. We wanted to make them, play in a 2-point game, and I thought we did. And we have to continue to do that. And I think at this point, it's really just executing the game plan and continue to rebound the basketball. I think we did a really good job there. We've been a good rebounding team all year. I think we got to continue to do that. That's a part of defense as well. There's a rebound the basketball, and so we got to continue to do that and just execute the game plan and keep fighting and staying connected. I think we were more connected yesterday, where someone may have advantage. We were in our gaps a little bit more and being able to push out as opposed to just stand out and watch it. So I thought we were more active yesterday.
All right, Coach, I'm going to do something I used to do with Coach Pregame, and occasionally he called me Paul in this situation when he wasn't happy with a question. But something that comes up frequently with our callers in our chat is people want to know, do you run offense, and what – I know it's a silly question. Do you run offense, and what is your offensive philosophy?
Well, my offensive philosophy is, and I do run offense. Do we execute it the way I wanted to be executed all the time? No. I think every coach would say that. But I think you run the best offense that fits, your players, right, and your personnel. Some teams are good passing teams. Some teams are not good passing teams. Some teams are good driving teams. Some teams are not good driving teams. But my philosophy and my concepts is spacing, ball movement, having players make reads and having them the freedom. All right. Obviously you want to set screens and playing spacing and let drivers drive and shooters shoot. And, for overall, that's the offense, right? The offense I want the ball to be spaced. I want to move the ball from side to side. I want 5 guys involved. So if that's the big man flashing up, and being able to hand off or pass it and reverse it and roll. Would love to have big guys, flash up and shoot. So, just more of a, continuity, not really player driven at certain times. We got to get the ball certain places in certain areas, and certain guys got to have the ball. But overall, my overall offensive philosophy is 5 guys all moving and playing together.
We should point out, and Paulie and I were talking about earlier in the show, that this team really hasn't been whole for, more than a month now. JJ's injury. We know Eddie Lampkin, at times has been dealing with some things, and now Donnie's, out, missed last night's game, his foot in a walking boot. Can you update us at all on Donnie's situation? You had mentioned day-to-day last night. Do you expect him to play against BC? Is it something that, you feel might keep him out for a little bit?
Yeah, we're not sure yet. I think again, it is kind of day to day. I don't want to say, hey, I don't expect him to play BC, and then he says that he can go. So that's why I said it's day to day, and just talking to our medical staff. That was just the honest way to say it. He can. Again, we thought JJ would be. We didn't know how long JJ would be, and that's why we were saying, hey, it's kind of day to day, week to week, or whatever it may be in the early stages. Then after that, the timetable became day to day because these kids, these young men, they heal fast, and things go away fast. So you just don't know with the timetable. But I always move forward as if we're not going to have someone. I've gotten accustomed to that this year, unfortunately. We started the season off, not full. Obviously, Chance was in the plans, and then, he had some issues, and then JJ and Donnie. But that's, for year 2 for me, it's been a lot of that dealing with, trying to get the team whole.
And let's look ahead to BC, whether you have Donnie or not. You're going on the road, a chance to make it back-to-back ACC wins. It's a team that's 9-6 overall, 1-3 in conference play. What can you tell us about this BC team that you're going to see on Saturday?
Earl Grant is a great coach, done a great job at BC. The one thing about BC and his teams, they're going to be physical defensively. They always are really good defensive teams, and offensively, they got a big guy that can go inside. The makeup of their team is, they have a lot of interior scoring and have good guards on perimeter. But the one thing that sticks out about Boston College is they defend, very physical defensive team.
All right, Red joining Orange Nation, brought to you by Oswego County Mutual earlier this week. That was Wednesday of this week. So at the time, they weren't quite sure about Donnie. We can officially tell you that Donnie Freeman not available for the game today. Will miss his 2nd game in a row. That's our Harding and Mazzotti injury update on Donnie Freeman. No real solid prognosis other than Red kind of has both said day to day and week to week. There's days and weeks, right? So I don't know the length of this one. It doesn't feel like it's necessarily, stretch it out a little and get back out there. Syracuse plays Louisville next Tuesday in the Dome, and then Notre Dame a week from today in the Dome would be the next 2 potential opportunities for Syracuse to get Freeman back on the court. Starting lineups not officially out there yet, though. A reminder: the starting 5 for last game was Starling, Moore, Taylor, Davis, and in the middle, Lampkin. So my presumption is that will be the same coming off the win, but we will know the answer to that before the end of our time together on our pregame program here today. With that, let's step aside for a few. If you'd like to chime in, you can. 315-437-7644 for ESPN 44. We'll continue on with our pregame coverage brought to you by our friends at Burdick after this with Cuse Sports Talk and ESPN Radio. I'm second to second, Phil. We're just constantly adjusting. Cooper Flagg, 42, ACC freshman record. How about that? He's pretty good. Pretty good. Choppa needs to get going again. Uses a slight dog. Interesting. It's a matchup of the two worst three-point shooting teams in the ACC. They tried, Coach D. They couldn't afford it. Malik Mack went to Georgetown. They tried to get the Ivy League guy. Oh, man. Couldn't even get the Ivy League guy. All right, so back to this Deion to the Raiders thing, if that happens. The Raiders are at 6 in the draft. Titans at 1. Browns at 2. So in this scenario, the Titans at 1 take Cam Ward. Then the Raiders have got to trade ahead of the Giants from 6 to 2 to take Shedeur. If they're going to have to give up a ton to do that. In this scenario, do the Giants just take Travis Hunter at 3? Figure out quarterback later? Yeah, Miami's been struggling a little bit recently, CBW. I forget if they have some injuries or what's going on. Ooh, Abdul Carter's really good. Yeah, I wouldn't be against that. That dude's a stud. He destroyed that game. I realize they lost, but he destroyed that game with one arm on Thursday. Like, that was crazy. Like, he had a bad shoulder, so they switched sides of the line of scrimmage, and he still wrecked the game. That dude is good. I would not be against that, even though they do have a ton of money already invested at the edge spots. Yeah. Go back and look at their Super Bowl wins. Yes, Texan Mark, but they're going to have to win a lot more games to even get to that hypothetical. Yeah, but 4 games over, which means they're going to need to go like 12-8 in ACC play. They're 1-3, which means they're going to have to finish like 11-5 at ACC play. Oh, this is such a CW game, San Diego Cuse. Isn't that just like Big Ten and Big East or something? I don't know what the deal with that one is.
This is the Burdick Ford and Burdick Toyota pregame show.
That it is. Back with you. Cuse, Boston College, at 3 o'clock. The CW. Live it, learn it, love it. There is no game on, I'm told, before Syracuse this week. So when you try to watch the beginning of the game, it should be there. So already a bonus in my book from the last CW game, whichever that was. Was that the Wake Forest game? Whatever that was, a couple weeks ago. Okay, what do we have going on in this game on this day in SU basketball history from the Shep Family Funeral Home? Celebrate your loved one with help from Shep. Visit shepfamily.com. So, all-time series, Syracuse dominated is strong, but they've been in control of the all-time series. They've won about 2/3 of the all-time games against Boston College. It's the Orange with 58 wins and BC with 27. Where things have really turned, so Syracuse had a decent lead in the all-time series in the Big East history and before. Since Syracuse joined the ACC, regardless of struggles in any other circumstances, the Orange are 18-4 in ACC games against Boston College. Though they did split last year, that ended what had been a Syracuse 11-game winning streak in the series. Last year, played twice. They played on the 10th of January in the Dome and on the 30th of January in Chestnut Hill. Orange won 69-59 in the Dome in early January last year, a game where Syracuse was led by Chris Bell's 20-point output. He was 4 of 9 from 3. JJ in that game only had 2 points. 20 days later out in Chestnut Hill, it was Boston College who returned the favor with an 80-75 win over the Orange out at Conte Forum. Claudell Harris, one of their starters and stars from last year's NIT team, had 19 points in that game. He went 5 of 9 from 3. It was JJ of the Orange returners from last year that had a big game in that one with 18 points and made 4 threes. Chris Bell was silent last year at Conte Forum. He only had 2 points in that game. But that had ended an 11-game winning streak for Syracuse over Boston College. And then there's the nugget I mentioned earlier coming into today. And, man, we talk about NIL all the time here because you just can't escape it. You can't escape that. You can't escape the transfer portal. Boston College's starting 5 last year was this. Quentin Post was their center. We all remember him. I promise you, Quentin Post, he can't hurt you anymore. He's not there anymore. Quentin Post is gone. Man, what a player he was. 7 foot at the inside-outside game, the fellow Dutch friend of Jesse Edwards. He now just, the other day, was earlier this week, in fact, played his first NBA game for the Golden State Warriors. He had been down in the G League, so good for Quentin. Good to see him getting a shot. He's got a chance now. He could hit the outside shot. He could hit the college 3. If he can legit stretch that to the NBA 3 with his size and other skills, I think he's got a shot to make it as a rotational guy in the modern NBA game. So he's gone to the Warriors. The other 4 starters, Devin McLaughlin, Prince Aligbe, Jaden Zachary, and Claudell Harris, are all still in college. None of them are at Boston College. Not one. All hit the portal after last season. McLaughlin went to Vanderbilt, starter in the SEC. Aligbe went to Seton Hall, starter in the Big East. Jaden Zachary went to Clemson, starter again in the ACC. Claudell Harris went to Mississippi State, starter in the SEC. BC, I mean, we've talked about Syracuse's potential issues here in the NIL space this year and how it may have affected them negatively in trying to bring in out of the portal. Holy moly, BC was rated, absolutely rated out of the portal last year. They could have brought back 4 starters from a 20-win basketball team. 4 starters from a 20-win basketball team, all left, all to be starters on different Power 5 basketball teams. Crazy. Absolutely crazy what happens there. And I do wonder, you look at, and Syracuse and BC, obviously, they run on parallel tracks in many ways, right? Northeast schools, private schools have shared a league for, a lot. The Big East, BC left for the ACC before the Orange did, but they shared the Big East for, 30-some-odd years? 20-some-odd years? 20-some-odd years. And then now shared the ACC for more than a decade. So they've shared a conference with each other for 30-plus years, plus being on the Eastern Seaboard. Obviously played each other a lot prior to that in football and basketball, regardless, in the pre-conferences as we know it now times. So Syracuse and BC often run on similar paths. Obviously, there's a lot of differences. BC's in a pro town where there's a lot of, Celtics, Bruins, Patriots, Red Sox stuff going on. Syracuse, the big dog here in the Cuse. Both schools in this era where football leads the bus, no matter what you'd prefer. Both schools replaced their football coach in the last offseason, and both seem to have excited their, fan base, donor base on the football side of things. We know all of what Fran Brown did for Syracuse. Boston College hired Bill O'Brien, the former Patriots assistant, the former Penn State head coach, the former Houston Texans head coach. So it's one of those things here where both teams in many ways have had some football excitement rise. And Syracuse obviously had the great year. BC got off to a great start this year, slowed down. Castellanos transferred now to Florida State, blah, blah, blah. We don't need to tell the whole story there. But I'll be very intrigued to see, watching where both are. Clearly, both are having some level of NIL struggles on the basketball side of things right now, it would seem. Both have had some successes, it would look like, on the football side of things. I'm intrigued to see how that's going to play out going forward. I'm really intrigued to see how that's going to play out going forward. Can the rising football both schools then benefit basketball, or because of football's rise, are resources being tilted that way away from basketball? So it's an interesting thought exercise to see how stuff like that's all going to play out here. When you look at Syracuse and Boston College, oftentimes in the same boat on things like this, the Northeast outpost in the Atlantic Coast Conference, and in many ways, two teams that really struggle shooting the three today. They combine to make less than 10 threes a game between the two teams. Combine. It's 2025. This could feel like an old school Big East kind of rumbly kind of game today. Oh, yes, it could. Yes, it could here today. With that, we'll take a break. Still time for a call if you'd like at 315-437-7644. And we'll get our final thoughts to get you set for Cuse and Boston College today out in Chestnut Hill. All that next here on Cuse Sports Talk and ESPN Radio. Oh, that's right. I forgot Devo's on this game today. No satellite out there. Devo did tell me that. I done forgot. Then Devo's got the he's TV color for Syracuse's next two games, he said. Louisville and Notre Dame. They can CBW. Yeah, how dare you, Gavendo? How dare you? A traitor in our midst. Yeah, she's really good. She was the Mountain West Player of the Year a few years ago at San Diego State. Yeah, Ville got it fixed real quick. Pick the right coach, crap ton of NIL, and there you go. Oh, yes, Orange 22. That was the terrible, was that the blue shorts, orange top game for Syracuse? That gross look? I believe class starts Monday, Gavendo. So, yeah, students should be back. Class starts Monday, I think. So hopefully that should juice the crowd a little bit. Yeah, Clemson's good. Yeah, but don't lose this game and test the fans on that. Yeah, it sounds like there was maybe 5 there on Tuesday. Legit. Yeah, he's still 6'10". Looks like an NBA bat player. I don't know what he's going to do. Or what this injury is, how long it's going to hold him back. Look at McCullough, though. Oh, yeah. We're going whole hog on it, Govendo. A Tim Leonard, Jordan Capozzi, post-game tag team joint. Yeah, he's been falling out of first-round mocks recently, San Diego Cuse.
At 1440 AM. This is the Burdick Ford and Burdick Toyota pregame show.
That it is, as we roll along here on this Saturday afternoon. About 15 minutes out tip time today. Conte Forum for Syracuse and Boston College. As mentioned, phone lines open and available to you at 315-437-7644. Let's hit the phones. Bringing our guy Pat in the Cuse. Hey, Pat.
Anybody that didn't hear Red with Michael Benny, they had a little tidbit for some event. He sounded like a totally different person. He sounded more relaxed. He sounded more genuine. I think there's something to it. Did you see it, Brian?
No,
Michael Benny?
I did not. I did not catch that, Pat. In fact,
maybe I'll put it up on Twitter or something. But no, he sounded totally different. He sounded more like what you'd want to hear from him. I mean, it was well done. So I know I can be critical of Red. I know I'm not the only one in this town that is critical of him, and obviously nobody's happy with what it is. I mean, look, we're playing BC. We're a dog. We have the worst announcers. We have the worst commercials, and we have the worst network, and we have the worst refs for what we have going on for our conference game. So there's just the point for me is we just cannot accept this. We have to figure out what's the way to get back to at least, being a top 6 team in the ACC. Because, when I think about Georgetown, Dave stunk for a long time, but they got a coach, and they're getting it done. What are they, like 13-2 or something?
Yeah, I forget the exact record, but they're playing well. I mean, the point is they are playing much better than they have in a decade here this year.
So I won't mention the high school team that I officiated last night, but they're really good, and I noticed something that I think is very relevant. They were letting an inferior team hang around. He calls timeout. He gets very aggressive in the timeout, and he gets very aggressive in the game from that point forward. And it went from a pretty close game, and they smoked him by 30. So, to me, obviously the talent made that happen, but the coaching is what makes the talent. Sure. I mean, literally, that's what a coach's job is to do. And I'm not seeing it. I'm just not seeing it. And I think the talent, Brian, are you looking at like Clemson's roster or Florida State's or some of these other rosters? Are they significantly better than ours?
Clemson's might be. Florida State's is always kind of weird. They're always a weird roster that's hard to judge because there's a bunch of athletes. But I look at Syracuse's roster and the talent. It's not where Syracuse rosters have been. That's for darn sure. Besides a guy like Starling, there's not a lot of other guys like that on the roster right now. Starling, Elijah at some point. Freeman. Besides that, you're not really looking at Syracuse talent level roster that we're used to anyway from back in the day.
So whose decision was it to pay Lampkin $700,000?
Yeah, I think that was they wanted a center, and that was the going rate. That was the going rate. It's tough out there. It's tough out there in the portal. I mean, you can always look back on that. Like if you had taken
a waste of money.
Like if you had taken that money and invested it in a point guard, and say had gotten, I don't know, a Malik Mack or any of the guys you were looking at. I mean, and you don't have Lampkin. How different does the roster look?
Reynolds was good.
Yeah,
Reynolds would have been the guy.
Yeah, like or Reynolds, or if you got Dakota LaFleur, or any of the names that you were connected to in the offseason. Say you had tossed $500,000 at one of them and gotten them. How different does the season look? I don't know. In hindsight, that probably makes more sense. But realistically, at that time last spring, everybody on earth said Syracuse needed a center. Now, it's you wish it was working out a little better. He's okay, but it's the portal is weird, man. Trying to navigate that stuff every year.
Yeah, I'll just leave you with this. I think it's been a tough season because I think our point guard Carlos was a swing and a miss, and then JJ got hurt. So it would have been interesting to see if JJ didn't get hurt, how this could have been different, because maybe because Chapa started getting minutes when JJ wasn't at the 2, remember?
Right.
And now Chapa is kind of hit and miss. I still think he's a talented player, and I think he's, one of the guys I root for because he could be here next year. Although I think with the way, the portal is, he could have 1 foot out. He does have 1 foot out the door. And I just want to leave you with the one last thing. I had hinted on the post game with Tim that Chance was done, and now it's pretty much been announced.
Whatever's going on with his medical stuff right now, it doesn't. It's vague enough that it doesn't appear we're going to be seeing him anytime soon. So that's unfortunate. Unfortunate.
It is a shame because 2 of the reasons that I wanted Autry as the coach was the roster retention for last year, which didn't work out very well, and the fact that obviously I thought Benny Williams was a talent that was going to thrive under Autry. That didn't pan out, and Chance Westry, that Autry had a lot to do with that. So all these guys are whiffs. We basically it wasn't worth it last year because we didn't do anything of any significance, and now Benny's gone, thank God, and Chance was a complete non-factor for the team. So I don't know what we're hanging our hat on with Red. I hope he turns it around. Whatever's the fastest way to get us relevant, I really don't know what that is right now, Brian. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Pat. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see and all that. Yeah, it's the Chance Westry thing, man. All the talent in the world from everything we've heard, but we never actually really got to see it. And I'd be reasonably surprised if we see him play this year or ever for Syracuse. That's just kind of the way it goes. Same starting lineups are announced. Same starting 5 as last game for the Orange. JJ, Chapa, Lucas Taylor, Jair Davis, and Eddie Lampkin, the starting 5. Roger Ayers, a veteran Final Four referee, leads the officiating crew today in Chestnut Hill with Sean Hall and Kevin Milner. Starting 5 for BC is their normal group of Donald Hand, who's kind of a big, powerful guard. He's their lead guy this year, with Josh Beadle, Dion Brown, Elijah Strong, and Chad Venning, who's very strong. Him and Lampkin today. That's going to be a little... It's going to be a little beef in the old post down today. Venning, a very different kind of center from what they had in Quinton Post last year. Post like to, step outside. Venning, no. He's not going to do that. He's not going to do that. He's not going to head outside. I think JJ has a nice game today. He continues to assume that point guard role. I think he's going to distribute a little more today. Kind of feel maybe a Chapa more. We're going to will Chapa back into existence. He's going to hit a couple threes. I feel it. Chris Bell off the bench. I think that continues. Why not 15 for Bell today? Syracuse, Syracuse is not a blowout club. I realize that BC just got thwacked by Georgia Tech last weekend. Syracuse is not in the business of blowing anybody out right now. I think this is going to be a nip and tuck game. Cuse right now currently a 1-point dog in Vegas heading into the game. I think Syracuse, tight game, wins it. Kind of similar to Tuesday, though a few more points. I got 78-70. Cuse knocking off BC today, but this could easily go the other way for sure. This one's a big one to making sure you avoid the crap of missing the ACC tournament down the line later in the season. Tom Wormy, Seth Davis on the call on the CW on your television for this game that starts in a little bit more than 5 minutes. On the radio, already underway on TK99 and here on ESPN 1200. Matt Park, Eric Devendorf filling in for Jim Saddle in today. Paulie out there in Chestnut Hill right now. And come back right here after the game, our post-game coverage with Tim Leonard and Jordan Capozzi, and of course, as always, your calls. That'll wrap up our pregame coverage today. Enjoy the game. I'll be back with you Monday right here on Cuse Sports Talk and ESPN Radio.